In this episode, I'm going to share all about running a health retreat, all of the behind the scenes of what was involved, all of the logistics, all of the ideas and concepts and things that actually go into a health retreat, but also some of the mindset side of things and what came up and some of the barriers I faced when it came to putting on an event. So to start with, I want to give some context that I had only ever run like a event that was a few hours. So I'd run evening events, I'd run afternoon events, but I'd never run anything like a health retreat. So this was my first 3-day event, and it was a big jump from what I had run to what I decided I wanted to do. And I really went for it and I took that leap. And understandably, lots came up for me internally because it was such a huge jump from what I had done and what I was doing. But I learned so much from it. It's like I put myself in an accelerated growth container by taking that big leap. And I'm so grateful I did, because the 3 days was amazing. And I feel like it was a good amount of time for what I wanted to convey and what I wanted to teach and get across, and to be able to really have that positive impact in the people who did come along. So this was an urban health retreat. So it was located near a city, and it was actually the type of retreat that people didn't stay at. So it was run between 9 to 5. I joked about it being the 9 to 5 that you actually want to go to. And it was a day of activities, and it was a combination of the health retreat style activities, things like the exercise classes, yoga, meditation, good food, all of that kind of stuff. But then it was also combined with like a health seminar. So I kind of called it an immersion sometimes as well. Like, while the title was officially an urban health retreat, I also referred to it as an immersion, because it was really being immersed in health, one from the practical perspective of doing the actual things that support and benefit health, but also from a ongoing perspective, where it was like learning tools, resources, skills, habit creation, so that they could take that information and actually implement it into their life going forward, not just use it and do it for the 3 days and then forget about it. Because while it's so fun to take yourself away for 3 days focusing on your health, I also wanted to equip people with tools and resources to actually help them change their behavior ongoing, and actually dig a little bit deeper than just some of the more surface level, like, this is what you do for health. It's like, yeah, this is what you do, but this is also how you do it. So if you've listened to my previous episode, which was an insight into my business, Project Nourish, and the direction I'm going with that, you will have heard that this health retreat was actually born because I still wanted to utilize the content that I had created for my program, Habitually Healthy, which was a 12-week program. So what I did for my health retreat, because I'm no longer running Habitually Healthy at this point in time, I actually took some of the core information from that and some of the core pillars of what I taught in Habitually Healthy. So I essentially teach 5 core healthy habits and how to create them as the habits. So it's things like nourishing your body with real food, hydrating, focusing on your sleep, moving your body every day, and regulating your nervous system, like decreasing your stress through self-care. So they're the 5 habits that I use as pillars. And then that's what I translated into this health retreat as well. So we also did things like more of that behavioral change and mindset stuff. So looking into people's why and working with their identity and helping them actually embody health. And then there was stuff around self-sabotage and a lot of that mindset stuff sprinkled in as well. So that was like the content of my health retreat, and trying to get through all of that content in 3 days was a very ambitious thing to do. And I wasn't able to go as deep into each topic as I was through my 12-week program, obviously, but I feel like I was able to deliver enough of the core pieces that people were really able to take away some really great distinctions, really great learnings, and really great habits as well that they could then implement into their life. So that was kind of like the content of the health retreat. So for me, it was actually a little bit easier in the sense that I already had a lot of the content there. And yes, I went and updated it. Yes, I went and chose what I wanted to include. Yes, I created a whole new workbook, or finessed my workbook that I had and built upon that and created this giant workbook that in itself was so valuable to take away that from the retreat. So there was still an element of creating the content for the retreat and putting work into that. But it was like I'd already had 12 weeks worth of content that I was working with, rather than having to start from scratch. And obviously my health retreat was that combination of the retreat and the like seminar workshop style. So I did deliver a lot of information. And I know some health retreats are literally more just the practical side of it, where you go and you do your beautiful yoga classes and meditation, and you do have group discussions, and there's elements of the teaching, but it's not as much, which I love that too. And I think I will definitely run more of the practical only style health retreats in future too. I'll do like a combination. For this one, I really wanted to infuse the two and teach lots of content as well, within reason, because also I didn't want to overwhelm people who were attending. I wanted to make sure they were really able to get a lot from it and still feel relaxed and not feel inundated with a crazy amount of information. But I wanted to give them enough that they were able to take out really practical tools and skills into their life. So for my style health retreat, or this particular style, the urban health retreat that I did this year, there was that element of having to have that content and creating that workbook. And I know not all health retreats are like that. So I'm just giving context in the way that it's like we get to design our own structure and schedule of our health retreat. And this is how I designed it. But it also can be more relaxed and more laid back, where you don't have as much time that you need to devote to creating the content and the teachings or the workbook or things like that. But for me, like I said, I also did have that element of a little bit more ease because I had already created a lot of it. It was just about really going in and solidifying it and tailoring it to the retreat itself. So there was that element of the retreat for me logistically, and like from a preparation perspective, there was creating the content, creating all the slide decks, or finalizing the slide decks and changing them from what were the habitually healthy ones to the health retreat ones, and choosing what I wanted to include, adding new things, because it had been probably a year since I ran habitually healthy. So there was more things I wanted to add or change as I continue to grow and evolve. All of my courses continue to grow and evolve. So there was that element, and then creating a workbook, and then going and getting the workbook printed out and all of that kind of stuff. That was like one piece of the preparation. There was also finding the venue, which I was really lucky to have a friend who's a beautiful yoga teacher who actually ran the yoga classes at my retreats. She recommended a place to me, and it was the perfect space for the retreat because the room was just, it was light, it was bright. I was able to bring lots of plants and crystals into the space, so it felt really inviting, really like a sanctuary. I brought in diffusers with essential oils. So I did a lot of that, setting the space and creating the space, but I had the perfect room for that, with windows overlooking Albert Park Lake, or overlooking what would be Albert Park Lake behind that, but it was like tree-lined street. And then there was also a rooftop that I had access to for some of the weekend. So we were able to have a really beautiful view of Melbourne skyline, and of Albert Park Lake and all of the big parkland around there. So it was a really amazing venue for a retreat because it had different spaces. And while it would have been perfect to run it just in the room that I had access to as well, because it was the right size for the amount of participants I had to sit, and also to have all the yoga mats laid out. So when we did our exercise classes or our breath work or our meditations, it was easy to just like move from one section of the room to the other section of the room, rather than having to pack up and like set up the tables every time we needed to get the yoga mats out, or do an exercise class or some sort of class that required us to be lying on the floor and required more space. So it was perfect for that. And that's something that originally I was going to do it so that I set up the tables and then we moved the tables aside for the exercise classes. And I'm really glad that it worked out, that it was the right amount of people, that we didn't need to do that, because that would have had to be a whole other layer that I would have had to factor in, and it would have been more disruptive for the retreat as well. Whereas this was really streamlined. So that's something I highly recommend, based on where you're running a retreat or what kind of things you want to do, not having to do too much setting up or packing down in between. Really, really helpful. So that was all beautiful. The space, was lucky enough to find that space, and for it to be free for those 3 days. So I locked in some dates. Originally, I was going to run this retreat in November, late November. And then I was just finding it was such a busy time of the year going into the festive season and going into December, where everyone's like wrapping up for the year, going on holidays, having all their like festive gatherings and heaps of functions and events. And it just wasn't flowing. I was finding it really hard to organize and really hard to be able to get people there as well, because everyone was busy. It was like the busiest time of year. And I really wanted to be able to impact and support people. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to schedule this and postpone this. And it also just worked better with things I was working through in my life and different things I had going on. So I made that decision. Originally, it was hard for me to make that decision because I was like, no, I said I'm doing it on these dates. I can't change it now. Like, how will that look? But then I realized it was actually better for everybody involved, myself and the participants. And it was going to create more time and space for me to make sure that it was the best it could be, rather than doing it because that's what I said I was going to do and I had to leave it there. The beauty of having our own businesses is that we can actually make our own rules and we can change things if it feels most aligned and if it feels like it's going to be more beneficial for the people involved and for ourselves. We get to make that call. We get to make that decision. So taking the pressure off myself and being like, actually, you know what? Yes, I said it was going to be in November, but it's going to be better if I make it in February. So why not make it in February? And that's exactly what I did. So I moved the dates to February. It gave me a little bit more space to finish creating all of the content for inside of it, to finish organizing the different facilitators, because I did have different people come in for different activities. So I had yoga run twice over the weekend, on the Friday and on the Sunday. So it was really nice. It was kind of like towards the start of the retreat and then towards the end of the retreat. So that was a really beautiful way to kind of like relax people into the retreat, and then a beautiful way to kind of close off the retreat as well. And we did have like a closing discussion and a session after that, but that was kind of like a beautiful yin yoga flow to kind of like help them relax, unwind, integrate some of what they'd learned, and just leave feeling like with a really full cup. So I had a yoga teacher come in, beautiful Elisa. I also had a friend who's a personal trainer come in for a session on the Sunday that we ran. And she did a little bit of a talk, and then she also led us through some strength and mobility training, and a little bit more of like a actual workout rather than the yoga was still a workout. Yoga can still be quite a workout, but different style workout. And then I also got another friend who's a Pilates teacher to come in for the Saturday, and she ran a Pilates class on the Saturday morning. And that was beautiful to get the ladies going through the Pilates and the benefits of Pilates. And I really wanted to get a few different types of movement there throughout the weekend so that people could see different ways they could be moving their body. Because one of the things that I really believe is we need to find a way that we really enjoy moving our body in order to be more disciplined and stick to it and create that habit. Like if we love doing something or it's something we enjoy and we're more likely to actually do and engage in, that's better than doing something that someone told us is really good, but we hate it and it's a real chore to do it. So from that behavioral change side of things, I also wanted to support them in finding something they loved, which is why I had the 3 different types of exercise. And each of the days there was 1 to 2 workouts a day. So I didn't want to overload it too much. It wasn't like a fitness retreat where it was like, yes, we're going to get smashed in the gym and do 3 workouts or all this high intensity stuff. I really wanted to still make it that mix of relaxing, but still moving our body, because it's so important, especially when there were times of the day where we were sitting down, workshopping things. I was teaching, we were talking, like there was lots of sitting too. So I wanted to break it up with that standing, with that movement, and getting everything flowing and getting those endorphins in too. So that was the movement side of it. I also had my beautiful partner, Ryan. He came in and ran a breathwork session. So he moved the ladies through the breath work and helping them release things and really helping them get into their bodies, and working more on that emotional health and release and processing. So that was a really cool thing to incorporate as well. And then I ran a meditation one of the days. I think I only did one. I may have done a second, but there was like a body love meditation, body gratitude meditation that I ran that was really beautiful too. I'm trying to think of what other activities we did. I was going to include like a walk around the lake, but I found time just didn't permit in the end, having the 9 to 5 structure, and that was 8 hours, which was amazing. But it was also, I had a lot to jam pack in, like with the 1 to 2 workout classes or activities a day, plus all of the content I was teaching, plus lunch. And speaking of lunch, I actually did run a cooking demo on the Saturday, which was really awesome. So I made a chicken vermicelli bowl for everybody, and I had already cut up some of the ingredients, and then I just cut up some of them in front of them as well, so that I could show them different techniques. I could talk about the different ingredients that I was adding in, show them how simple it was to make a recipe like that, or how simple it can be to eat healthy recipes, and get lots of variety as well. So that was a really fun thing to incorporate. And I did supply food for each of the 3 days. So we had a lunch on each day. They ate their own breakfast and their own dinner, but I supplied lunch and snacks. And I was lucky enough to have my friend Ali support with the food side of things, as well as Ryan. They both were amazing when it came to the 2 days that I didn't do the cooking demo. They helped with the behind the scenes prep and bringing that in for me. So yeah, it was awesome to be able to give people a range of different healthy meals and for them to be able to enjoy that lunch, knowing that it was a beautiful home cooked meal, and see some examples of what healthy eating can be like, and how delicious it can be. Like one of the days we had a combination of pumpkin fritters and fish cakes, and then like a side salad. And then the other day, aside from the chicken vermicelli bowl, which I did on the middle day, on the Sunday, we did it was like a veggie packed beef shepherd's pie. So just showing them how like it gets to be delicious, it gets to be fun, it gets to be relatively easy. Like for example, something like a shepherd's pie is a relatively easy dish that you can cook in a batch and you can have it a few times that week. So I really loved having the food side of it. I'm not sure if I'll include the food in future ones because it does add a lot of like preparation and kind of behind the scenes things that need to be done. And I was really lucky to have support with that. If I didn't have Ryan and Ali helping me with that, it would have been a lot harder to get that food on the table without disrupting the health retreat itself. So I love that I did it this time, and that'll be something that I look at whether or not I include in future ones. I probably would still do a cooking demo, but I'm not sure if I would supply lunch every day. But I also did supply snacks too. So I had a snack bar. I had some incredible brands involved as well, both in the snack bar and the goodie bag. And I'll talk about the goodie bag in a moment. But so for example, I had Koja reach out, or not reach out, I reached out to Koja and asked if they wanted to be involved. And I'm a big fan of the Koja whole food bars because they are real food ingredients and don't contain any of the like additives that some of the other whole food bars contain. So they're really aligned with my brand philosophy. So I had them on the snack table and in the goodie bag. We had Maver's peanut butter in the goodie bag. What other brands were involved? Mount Elephant, they had some baking mixes that they sent through that were amazing, the date loaf, and they were in the goodie bag. Definitely had more. Oh, I'll talk about the goodie bag in a moment. So back to the snack bar. There was also, I made some slices and some bliss balls for everybody to enjoy. So I made them up on the Thursday before the retreat. So we just had them and we could pick at them throughout the weekend. My mum was kind enough to help with some chia puddings. So she made some chia puddings for everybody for one of the snacks one of those days. What else did we have? There were like fruit platters some days, nuts, dark chocolate, like different types of snacks throughout the weekend, because we had 2 snack breaks a day and then our lunch break. And so the snack break, we were able to stay in the room if we wanted to. People could go get a coffee or a chai or a hot chocolate or go for a walk around the block to get some fresh air. But then there were also some snacks provided that they could either have throughout the breaks or just while I was teaching or while we were workshopping things. There was like a constant supply of snacks, and I also had drinks, a constant supply of drinks. So obviously non-alcoholic drinks. There was sparkling water. There was obviously normal water there, and coconut water as well, and a good collection of tea too. So, and when I say tea too, I don't mean the brand, I mean tea as well. So there was like a big furnace that had boiling water in it, and people could go up and make themselves a tea at any point during the day. So I was making sure everyone was staying hydrated, because obviously hydration is another important part of health. So you can see how I've like infused the weekend with all of the practical stuff and making sure they're ticking all the boxes when it comes to supporting their health and nourishing themselves, while also educating them on these topics and how to take it into their day-to-day life. So that was the food side of it. Then I've mentioned goodie bags, so I'll talk about that so I don't forget it. So the goodie bags, like I've said, we had Mavis peanut butter. We had Mingle also sent through some spices and spice mixes. That was really cool to have included as well and help people make tasty meals at home. Mount Elephant, like I said, that date loaf, the baking mix. I love their baking mixes because it makes life so much easier. You just add a few ingredients and it's actually a healthy baking mix, not like the ones that are full of sugar or refined ingredients or preservatives or additives or all the things that I don't recommend on the Real Food Way. So that was that part of it. What else was in the goodie bag? There were these beautiful essential oil rollers. They are so amazing, actually. For anyone watching this on YouTube, I've got them right here. I'm going to pull one out. So they're these crystal healing rollers from Summer Salt Body, and different different smells. I was going to say flavors. I was like, no, you don't need these. So different smells. So they have crystals inside them, they have gold inside them, and beautiful essential oils and coconut oil. So you just roll them on your pulse points. So they were a really beautiful addition to the goodie bag as well. Really loved those. What else was in the goodie bag? There was a fair few things. I added in like some teas. On my magnetic health planner, I included for every participant so that they could take that to use that to support their habit and support that awareness and that trigger of the habit. Because I always say when it comes to habit creation, we need some sort of trigger to initiate the behavior, and having a magnetic planner on your fridge can really be supportive of that, seeing what you're going to be eating, remembering every time you look at your fridge or you open your fridge, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I've done my meal plan, or this is what I'm eating. So gave everyone a magnetic health planner. I gave everyone some Epsom salts with some lavender through them, some little jars that I made up for them. I'm sure there was other things in there. There was definitely more of the Koja bars. There was some of the Maver bars as well, Maver's bars. That's all I can remember at the moment. If you scroll back on my social media, you'll be able to see the full goodie bag. But yeah, it was a really cool goodie bag, and I loved having that to be able to give people to take away as well. I really love getting free things from events, so I really wanted to incorporate that into my health retreat. So I feel like that's kind of the gist of the retreat, the different activities we did, the different things that were involved, like putting together the goodie bag, also creating the content, all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was like such a fun and fulfilling thing to do. And there obviously is a lot of work that goes into it. And I had been part of some of the 28 retreats before, so I had an idea of that. But obviously I was also working with a team or working with the venues. For example, we ran one at Elements up in Byron Bay. That was phenomenal. I loved getting to stay at Elements. It's so nice. So we had their team supporting as well. And we had different locations to kind of manage, whereas mine, it was like that one location. So much easier from that perspective. I'm sure there'll be times where I run other retreats where they are like the overnight stay kind of retreats as well. But I really wanted to start with this kind of retreat where it was more that day event, that combination between the retreat with the seminar-y style thing. So more of that full immersion from every angle. But yeah, I look forward to the days where I do run the overnight stay ones or different style ones, some that are focused more purely on just the health retreat style activities, and different events that are more like that health seminar style event. So having the experience of that one is a really amazing and valuable thing to have. And obviously it wasn't all easy. Obviously there was a lot of work, like you can probably hear from me just talking about all of the things that I did. But then there was also all of the mindset stuff that kind of came up alongside it as well, especially with the original dates in November. I was really struggling to get people into the event and to be able to have those people that I could support and could impact. So with a 3-day event, it's obviously more of a investment. So my retreat was 1,111, which I felt was a really fair price for 3 days, especially what I was including, because it was the education side and the retreat side. So that was the investment for the retreat. So getting people to invest in themselves and to be able to take those 3 days, I found at the start to be challenging, and it was bringing up a lot for me, and it like can bring up those stories when you run an event and it's like, are people going to come? Is it going to be worth it? All of that kind of stuff. So I navigated all of those kind of behind the scenes mindset things. And I'm so glad I did navigate it and I didn't let them stop me, because there were times, especially when I postponed it from November to February, I was like, maybe I should just cancel it. But I did have people who had already agreed to come along. So I was also like, I can't cancel it. But I knew deep down that I didn't want to cancel it, that it was my head telling me to cancel it out of fear. But my heart was like, yes, you need to run this. Like, this is your time. This is going to be so fun and so fulfilling. So I ran it, and I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I moved through those blocks and I looked at some of those patterns that were coming up, and I looked at some of like the root causes of where they were coming from. Like that's probably an episode in itself. I could talk about the time when I was younger and I threw a party and the turnout was like nowhere near what I thought it would be. And I felt like a loser at the time. So that's kind of made it hard in future for me to want to run events or want to run or have my own parties, because I've got that kind of memory that I was still holding on to a lot of emotion around from my childhood. So I'm not going to go deep into that, but that's just kind of like an insight into some of the stuff I was navigating and some of the stuff that can get in our way. And this is why I believe that when it comes to business, it's so important to be addressing the mindset and the energetics and any past trauma that we have, because otherwise we won't even notice, but we'll be stuck in patterns or we'll be holding beliefs that aren't supportive of the life we're trying to create or the business we're trying to create. So it's really important to not just do the strategy side of things for business, but also the mindset side and that emotional healing side of things as well. So valuable. And that's where I've noticed the biggest differences in my business and in my life. And the more I continue to lean into that inner work alongside the strategy, obviously, but that really makes a difference as well. So navigating things like that. In terms of a financial perspective, running events or retreats are more of an outlay because you've got the cost of the venue. In my case, I had the cost of the workbooks, the food, the goodie bags, all of the things that I included, which can be quite a hefty expense. And in the case of my retreat, this first one that I ran, I was happy with how it went and I loved like everything about it. But from a financial perspective, I did go backwards. So I ended up spending more than I ended up making from the event. And that's just a good lesson for me. And it's not something that I'm upset about or annoyed about, because I'm a big fan of growth and I'm always paying for growth. And I said this to someone afterwards. They were like, oh, like obviously it's not viable to keep doing that. And I was like, yeah, but this is such a beautiful learning experience. And I often pay to be in courses or pay for coaches or pay for mentors. But this was essentially like I was paying to get the experience of running a retreat. So I was paying for the growth that came from that as well. So I kind of saw it as like an investment in myself. And yeah, like while in future, when I run events, I will have to make them actually profitable or at the very least break even. It was still a great lesson. And even seeing how I handled that, like there were times where I was getting down about that or getting stressed about that, where I'm like, oh, okay, this is like setting me backwards financially. Is this going to be possible? And there was the financial stress around that. But I also was able to flip that around and change my perspective of it and actually look at, okay, cool, this was a really amazing investment. I had a phenomenal 3 days with a really incredible group of people. I was able to positively impact the 9 people that did come along in the end. So it was like still such a highlight and still such a positive thing. So, but that's something I also wanted to share, even though it can be really vulnerable to share that I didn't actually make money from the health retreat. I think it's also really important that we talk about these things, because we often see the highlight reels on social media or even on podcasts. I could have just spoken about all the positives and not actually told you that, you know what, I actually lost money from this retreat. I actually went backwards a couple of $1,000s. So we can not always see the full picture. And you guys know that I'm really real when it comes to what I share. And I want to share even vulnerable truths, even things that some people might perceive as failures. And you all know that I don't actually use the word failure. I like to see them as lessons. And I definitely do not count that retreat as a failure. That was such a success in my mind because I successfully was able to support those people. I successfully ran a 3-day event. I learned so much. It was so much fun, so fulfilling. So absolutely worth it all. But I really do want to keep it real with you and share the truth and not just show the highlight reel. So wanted to mention that part as well. But I think I'm going to leave it there for today. I feel like that was a really beautiful summary of running the health retreat and some of the behind the scenes of the logistics, the process, what was involved, and also that mindset and energetic side of thing, and the financial side of things as well. So I hope you have enjoyed this episode, and I really look forward to being back in your ears again soon. If you have enjoyed this episode, or you enjoy listening to this podcast or watching this YouTube video now that it's on YouTube as well, you can leave a review, and I would be so grateful if you could leave a review. So please do that if you do feel called. And if you ever feel like sharing this podcast, any of the episodes with friends, I absolutely love being able to have this positive impact. And I'm so grateful that you're here learning from me. And I would love to be able to continue to spread that reach. So please feel free to share this with anyone else that you feel like might benefit from it. But thank you again for being here. And I look forward to chatting again soon.